Our next cool stop is at a residential garden here on Spring Island. It's filled with natives. It's going to give us an opportunity to spread some idea about some concepts that you might not have heard about yet, give you maybe some useful tips when implementing some native plants, and also just give you some good design and layout ideas too. So yeah, the next stop on our visit today is going to be at a residential garden here on Spring Island, and the point of that too is it's hard to sometimes visualize native species within your home garden, and so that's kind of where I'm going to let Karl take it over from here.
Sure. Yeah, a lot of people have a hard time visualizing what they've seen as maybe weeds in a wild area as garden plants in that setting. And I think one of the things that's important to remember is when you do see these plants in the wild, they're typically large masses or groupings of them. And so we want to replicate that in a garden setting like we've done here. You know, you've got the Stokes aster here, for instance, beautiful in bloom right now. Bees all over it, which is what we're all about. But it's a big mass of grouping. It's not just one odd plant. And you see that throughout the garden, groupings of all of one plant. Also, putting plants in the proper setting.
Yes, sir.
Being inspired by a natural area and replicating some of those colors and textures in the garden, in your garden design, is the best use for a native plant.
A really unique opportunity here. We get to talk about rain gardens. A fairly new concept to the Kiowa area, but it's something really unique, and I'd love for Karl here to talk about a little bit about what they are and the purpose they serve.
Sure. So a rain garden typically is designed to help handle some of the extra runoff. You know, when we get rain, we often don't just get a nice little sprinkle that lasts for 30 minutes or so, but it'll come all at once sometimes, and you can get runoff. And you've also got areas where maybe there's a lot of impervious surface, pavement, things like that. So you want a way to get that water, that runoff, into the ground, to percolate through the soil and into the roots of the plants and that sort of thing as best you can without creating erosion. So creating areas where that water, that extra runoff water is funneled down to a low point is what creates a rain garden.
So as far as where you might find a suitable area for rain gardens, from my experience, it'd probably be somewhere around like depressional areas within someone's...
Well, a natural area that's like a rain garden would be, yes, low areas, maybe between old dune ridges would be on Kiowa, you know, low areas that it's well drained because it's sandy soil. But it's where water would run off of higher areas and collect down to the low area. So at times it could be flooded, it could have a little water in it, be very wet, and other times very dry. So the plants in it would have to tolerate that moisture when it was really wet, but also be able to have deep roots into the sand for times when it's dry.
For sure. And now what kind of plants would do well in a rain garden?
We would probably consider them wetland plants, just not aquatic plants. So they wouldn't be plants that had to be floating in water, for instance. So like this area, we've got pickerel weed, which is a great one, you know, for areas that can be dry at times. Beautiful flowers for butterflies. Ironweed, another great one for butterflies and all that, but in areas that can be damp or moist, but maybe not flooded for great extents of the time. Elliott's aster, great aster for these areas. That's this one. Juncus or needle rush. You see that a lot around the island, I'm sure. And that's a plant that can take it when it dries out, but can also handle it if it's flooded with water.
So what would be a benefit of having a rain garden in a residential area?
Absolutely. The benefit of a rain garden would be to take that excess rainwater runoff and get it into the ground or into the roots of plants, and part of that cycle rather than causing erosion and running off and into the nearby rivers and marshes. So you want it to go into the ground. So having areas that funnel that excess water into one low area is really what a rain garden is.